Deck the halls with Molly Holly, fa la 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 la. Okay, I really need to start getting used to her. Whew. But anyway, girls, thank you so much for meeting me here today before Comer Alexa gets back from her beach trip. Honestly, when she feasts her eyes on our new faction, Optic Attraction, she's gonna be so jealous!
I'm just loving how sophisticated and hot I look in these spectacles.
Yeah, okay. And why are you holding a book?
Duh, because I look like a super sexy librarian now.
Okay, well, your book is upside down, so maybe keep working on that. And Robo Tamina, where are your glasses?
I don't need spectacles. I have flawless cybernetic vision.
Okay, but if we are trying to become Optic Attraction, you need to wear the glasses.
But I can see better than any human, so...
It's about the whole look. But, actually, I was wondering about your cybernetic vision. Does it still work? Can you, still run scans of people?
Let me run a quick scan.
Do I make eye contact? I don't... It's awkward.
Yep, it still works. I have you classified as a moron.
Moron? Why, that little nerf herder Comer Alexa must have programmed that into you. You know, she really needs to use her computer technical skills into something more useful.
Like repairing pod racers?
Yeah, sure. But anyways, I need to go get started on my review of the new Basic 126 Mandy Rose figures. But we will work on this whole thing later. Duckface deuces.
Hey, Robo Tamina, scan me. I want to see what I'm classified as.
Okay. It is accurate.
Well, spill the beans, you big old tin can. What's it say? What am I classified as? Beautiful? Hot? Voluptuous?
Yes, that is exactly what it says. All of those things.
Hey y'all, welcome to Lumberjillville. Women's wrestling lives here. And welcome to today's review of the brand new Basic Series 126 Mandy Rose figures, both the regular and the chase version. Now, before we take a closer look at these figures, I just wanted to point something out that kind of bothered me a little bit. So I pre-order and pay overnight shipping on all women's wrestling figures from ringsidecollectibles.com, and usually I have no complaints, no issues. But these figures showed up in this. They were both stuffed inside this, and they showed up, and to no surprise, they're all beat to crap, which I don't care. I'm going to open them up, but man, I'm just really disappointed. I'm sad, you know? When you pay overnight shipping, you expect the quality of care, but either way, no big deal. Let's take a closer look at these figures. Alright, so let's start off by taking a closer look at these figures MOC, and I have to say, I usually don't really find basics too appealing MOC, and as you know on this channel, I open up all my figures, but sometimes I'll buy MOC versions as extras that I hang up on my wall. And I mean, I'll be honest with you, I think this new box design looks excellent. I think it really does look good and makes basics pretty appealing to display. And I think the main reason is we have that really enlarged photo of the superstar, and here we have Mandy Rose looking as beautiful as ever. And I think that really adds to the box art there. Turning it around here, we just have that image enlarged, and then we have the rest of the series, and then we have her classification, which is grappler. So, yeah, I mean, we are going to open these up, obviously, for the review, but, I mean, in all actuality, I wouldn't mind finding these when they go on store shelves and getting a couple to hang up MOC, because I think these look good. So now that I have these two out of the package, my first impressions of these figures are actually pretty good, to be honest with you. I think Mandy Rose is one of those superstars that can work in basic form with pretty minimal paint application because of the tight attire that she wears. And yeah, I just think they did a pretty good job here. Now, we are going to start off with the chase version in this review, which we usually don't do. Usually we start with the regular version. But the main reasoning is, as you can see here, you can probably tell from a distance, my scan print is off on my regular version, and it doesn't look very good. So I really want to start this off with some positivity. And yeah, I think this chase looks amazing. So let's take a look at the chase in pink first. Mandy Rose from Basic Series 126, Chase version. This attire is from the January 11th, 2021 edition of Monday Night Raw, where Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke were defeated by Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. So let's start off by taking a closer look at her face scan, and this is the main reason, like I mentioned, why we're starting with the Chase version this time around, is because the TrueFX face scan was printed on very cleanly and accurately on my Chase figure, whereas my regular not so much. It is important to note that, especially on these women's figures, you know, the facial structures tend to be a lot smaller and a little more detailed in some aspects, so the TrueFX face scan, if it's printed on even a little bit off, it looks really wonky like my regular version. But I am very happy with how the face scan turned out on this Chase version. I think it looks excellent. I think it looks even better in person for all those that weren't a fan of it online. I promise you it looks great in person when it's printed on exactly where it should be. I think it really does look just like her. And I also appreciate this short-lived hairstyle that she had. I know right now she has brown hair, and this is a very narrow part of her career as of recent where she had her hair at this length. But it is accurate, and I think they did a good job here with the sculpting. It is important to note that on both my figures, the back of the hair has some like dark smudges that does rub off, so that's kind of interesting. I don't know how that happened, maybe from the box actually. But either way, yeah, I'm really happy with this face scan, the hair sculpt. I think it looks great. And if you didn't like it from images online, I promise you in person, if it's printed on like my Chase version is, you'll like it in hand. Now let's take a closer look at this attire. So before we take a closer look at the attire, I just want to say, as a whole, looking at this figure, I think it's really appealing. I think it really pops and stands out. I love the white boots and the light pink attire in contrast with that tan skin tone that they chose for her. I think it looks really good and really pops and stands out. And I really do get the vibe that, hey, this is Mandy Rose. So taking a closer look at her attire now, unfortunately, with the women's basics, as of late, we haven't gotten a whole lot of molding, and this is no different. And it does work for Mandy because she wears tighter attire, but we'll get to the part that's a little kind of a hiccup here. So with the top, we have a little bit of molding between the chest, and the rest of the top is painted on, but it is painted on very cleanly all the way through the back. And this is where that hiccup occurs, where we have that lace-up pattern that is painted on. Now, I have no problem with the pure paint application on the attire when it's supposed to be tight, but when there's something like this that should be a textured pattern, that's when it's kind of like, it kind of cheapens it. It kind of brings it down a little bit, in my opinion. I think it looks cool, and the paint application is nice, but it's supposed to be textured, and it's not. So that's kind of a letdown there. I mean, it's what we expected, but yeah. Either way, looking at the front here again, we have little darker pink dots that go all around that border of the top, and we have a couple lines there, and then we have a rose painted on in a different color pink, which looks really nice. She also has a pink armband painted around her right bicep. Her bottoms are pink with, again, the darker pink kind of sequins, I guess, represents all the way around with a little pattern in the front. She has pink knee pads with a little pink sleeve painted underneath and the white boots with the rose on each side. So, yeah, I mean, as far as women's basics go as of late, this is honestly one of my favorites. I think it really is a cool figure, an excellent basic on top of that, and hopefully in the future they can kind of get past the cost-cutting ways and start adding some texture and molding to these women's basics, especially considering some of the men's basics are pretty extravagant. Look at the Fiend and Hogan basics. But either way, I'm really happy with how this turned out. Now, that being said, let's move on to the regular version. Mandy Rose, Basic Series 126, regular version. This attire is from the November 16th, 2020 edition of Monday Night Raw, where Mandy Rose, Asuka, and Dana Brooke defeated Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler, and Lana in a 6-woman tag team match. Now, her left shoulder was taped on this night with KT tape due to an injury she sustained on Raw the week prior, where she took a nasty fall on her left shoulder when Nia Jax threw her out of the ring. It's important to note, Shayna stomped on Mandy's shoulder early in the match using the ring steps as a base on this night. And Mandy barely got any TV time on this night where she wore the tape, so it's actually remarkable that we got a figure of this night. Alright, so moving on to my regular version, like I mentioned, that TrueFX face scan is a little bit off. It was printed on a little bit off, which makes it look wonky. And it's kind of hard to tell when you're looking at the figure by itself, so I wanted to put it next to that Chase version. Now, to me, that Chase version, it looks remarkable. I can't say enough good about it. But as you can see, on the left here, that's where it's supposed to sit on the facial structures, how it's supposed to be printed on. And on the right, it's just a little bit off. But by it being a little bit off, it looks really, really, really wonky. So I had to put them side by side so you could really see the difference here. Because looking at it by itself, it's kind of hard to tell. You might think that's how it's supposed to be, but when you compare it, yeah. So I just wanted to show y'all that. And I do have another one on its way, so hopefully the scan's better. But with that being said, let's take a closer look at the attire. Now, in contrast to her Chase version in pink, we have the regular version here in blue. And before we dive into the details of the attire, I wanted to point out something that when I saw this included on the pics of the final product, I lost my cookies. I was so ecstatic because I work in the medical field. I'm a medical professional. And the inclusion of this kinesio tape or KT tape on her left deltoid here, it is freaking awesome. I was so pumped to see this. I believe this is the first time we've ever gotten this in a women's wrestling figure. Now, I know there's been some Cesaro figures with it included, but as far as the females go, I believe this is the first time. And the fact that she wore this in a very small window on this segment on this night, and they went through the effort to add this on there. That's awesome to me. And it's a little biased from me and my job and career and everything, but I love the inclusion of that KT tape. Now, moving on to this blue attire, the first thing I'm going to say is that in hand, in person, this blue is a lot more accurate to what it's supposed to be than images online. And what I mean by that is even the final product of this figure in MOC images, the blue was like a sky blue type color, but in hand, having it in person, the blue is a more true royal type blue and accurate to what it's supposed to look like. And that makes me really happy because, you know, I am colorblind, but I am happy to say in hand, I think it's pretty similar to what it should look like. Now, moving on to the details, I am going to first and foremost point out that there are little intricate details as to what this attire is supposed to depict, like what she wore on this night, that just aren't there. They're just not included. I don't know if it was too many hits on the deco or what, but either way, it's really not that accurate if you look at the attire from that night. But let's look at what we have here. And I am going to say that we have a metallic shine to that paint, everybody. As y'all know, anyone that watches this channel, I try so hard to influence Mattel to use metallic, shiny, glittery type paint in the women's attires because it makes such a big difference, adds character to them. And here we get a little metallic shine to that blue, and that looks great. On the right side of her chest, we have that silverish blue rose, which looks good. We have little bluish silver studs going around. Now, it is important to note that even though the top is just painted on with a little molding between the chest, like the Chase version, it is a different top design. So on the Chase version, it kind of goes up, wraps around her neck, and then we have this lace pattern in the back. On the regular version, it just goes up, and it comes together in the back in a more standard type fit, but once again, it's just all painted on. Moving on to the bottoms, we do have a silverish blue type rose on her bottom there. And we have those little studs painted around. We have blue knee pads and white boots. So, yeah, I mean, even though the little intricate details of this attire aren't really accurate to what it's supposed to depict, I do think it looks good. And sentimentally, I freaking love this figure because of the inclusion of that KT tape. So next up, I wanted to put all of Mandy Rose's figures released by Mattel thus far and next to each other so you can kind of compare and contrast. And maybe this part of the video can help you decide if you're trying to add a Mandy to your collection, which one you prefer overall. Now, I am going to have a little side note here that there's not many figures I want to see happen more than a brunette Toxic Attraction Elite Mandy Rose in the future. And I bet you it does happen, but whoa, I would love to have that figure released, and hopefully that does happen. But for now, this is what we have as far as Mandy Rose figures, so let's take a closer look at them and break them down a little bit. On the far left, we have Basic Series 92, her first in the line figure. Then we have Elite Series 75, and then we have the most recent Basic in 126. Now, we did just review those, so we're going to spend a little more time on these. Now, in my opinion, my favorite Mandy Rose, and what I think is the best, is by far that Elite Series 75. I absolutely love this figure. I think it's one of the more underrated Elites ever released by Mattel. I absolutely love it. Now, it does come with an entrance vest and also an extra pair of hands. That's important to note. But, yeah, this Mandy, you could probably get it on eBay pretty cheap right now. And it would definitely be worth it because, yeah, this is truly an epic, epic figure. And, in my opinion, the best Mandy Rose. Now, as far as the worst or my least favorite, I'm definitely going with the Basic Series 92. Now, side note, I do have a sentimental attachment to this figure because this figure, this one right here, was one of the first figures I bought, like, in general, way before my channel, like, years before my channel, honestly. And I saw it at a Walgreens, and I was like, oh, Mandy Rose. Yeah, I think I saw her on TV. She's cool. I'm going to get that. So it was one of the very first. So I will love it, but now that I've had the channel and I've reviewed so many women's figures, I could say that, man, they really missed the opportunity here and dropped the ball, and the main reason is his head and face. I mean, this face to me looks nothing like Mandy at all, and the head is huge. It is oversized for some reason, and you might not notice until you compare it to the others. And on top of that, I don't know if it's her hair sculpt or what, but the head sits up really high on the neck. Like, it can't go down any farther, so the head sits up extremely high, and it's just a bizarre looking figure overall. I do like the gold and black paint deco on her attire. I do like that, and I like the boots and the knee sleeves there, but that head and face kind of ruins it for me, so that's definitely my least favorite. Now, obviously, I just reviewed the basic 126s, and those are pretty solid figures, and I do absolutely adore this chase version, but yeah, I mean, I'll let you decide which one's your favorite, but I just wanted to do a quick little comparison between them all so you can see them up close. And here's one last look at Basic Series 126, Mandy Rose, Chase version and regular version. Alright, now before I give these figure scores, I just want to remind y'all that I do have different scoring systems for my basics and my elites, so just keep that in mind. Now, that being said, I give Basic Series 126 Mandy Rose regular version an overall score of an 8 out of 10. I think this is a really, really good basic for what it is. And I really like the little additional details they added, like the metallic paint on the blue, and also this KT tape. I think that is freaking awesome. And it's overall a really good figure. Now, I am kind of pretending that the scan was printed on like it should be, like on my chase, so keep that in mind. Now, talking about that chase, overall, I give Basic Series 126 Mandy Rose Chase version a score of a 9 out of 10. Once again, this is an excellent basic figure. And on top of that, I think that pink is really iconic to Mandy, and it just really pops, especially in contrast with the blonde hair, white boots, the skin tone. I mean, this Mandy Rose figure to me is excellent. Thanks for stopping by Lumberjillville. Women's wrestling lives here. For a first look at all future women's wrestling figures, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and become an official resident today. To support Lumberjillville, head on over to Pro Wrestling Tees and search for Lumberjillville to check out our shirts. Now, I have a really exciting review of Ty Conti from Unrivaled Series 2 coming up next. Now, on that note, have a good night, y'all.